recently and will decline for many, many years. Because in a bad economy, countries don't want to let as many immigrants in. And in a bad economy, immigrants don't want to take the risk of moving. And yes, we've had a huge illegal immigrant problem, but to send them all back, as Donald Trump says, to me is too much. You got to say, look, here's a period to reapply, do X, Y, and Z. If you don't, we'll send you back. But if you suddenly sent back 11 million people, it would cost a fortune, and the economy would go into recession on that alone. My view is this. Again, what a country should do, and I lecture a lot in Canada and Australia, these are countries that have a great immigration policy. They want immigration, but you have to not only just be legal, you have to qualify to be in. You got to be in the skills they need. You got to prove you're valuable to the economy. Australia and Canada have very good immigration. Our immigration has still helped bolster our economy and take jobs that mean people wouldn't. But in a downturn, I'm telling you, we're going to turn anti-immigration in a moment. That's what happened in the Great Depression. The greatest immigration surge in all of U.S. history went down to zero in the 1930s when the economy fell.
We're seeing that happening already in Europe. There were reports this weekend about what was going on in Germany. They had demonstrators there who were attacking the police who were guarding immigrants who had come into the country. And I guess when I look at this, what you're talking about is how we have to make sure that people have the ability to take care of themselves. Absolutely. But we're doing exactly the opposite. We're paying them to come in. We're incentivizing them to come in. We're telling them, come in, you can get free this, you can get free that, you can get college tuition, in-state rates at any state in the nation. And now we've got on the Democrat side, we've got Hillary Clinton as well as Bernie Sanders saying, let's give everybody free college. If you do that and you pull in the people, the dreamers that Obama is incentivizing to come in, remember, those kids, those children are considered to be children all the way up to the age of 31. That's what he considers to be children. That's how they've redefined children. So if they open up and give everybody free college tuition, that is truly going to be a massive, massive increase of the welfare state. Just as we're going to see a massive increase in the welfare state as people have to pay for more schools, we're seeing massive increases of people coming in. And we say, we'll give a free education to anybody in the world, and we'll even let you pick what language you want to get schooled in. And we'll send the bill to the people who own homes in the area. I mean, that's what we're seeing happening now.
Well, David, I hate to say we have the most convoluted immigration policy in history. I tell you, in the coming decades, all developed nations, except for a few small ones from Israel to Australia, are going to be declining in population, workforce, everything, because we're not having enough babies, and immigrants help replace it. But you have to have an immigration policy that makes sense and that attracts the right people. And that's why we should study Australia and Canada and Switzerland and countries like this that have done it successfully. We've done it haphazardly, and it still worked to our advantage overall, but it's going to be a huge issue because we didn't do it the right way, and now we got to debate how do we undo it. And I don't agree with the extreme of Trump saying send them all back and then bring the best ones back in, but we got to do something to get clear about this and have better policies. But I tell you, David, I don't think immigration is going to be a big policy in a downturn that I'm predicting in the next 4 to 7 or 8 years. Immigrants are not going to want to go in as much, and people here are even more not going to want them to come in. Immigration is it was already net zero for many years in Mexico, our biggest immigration source. I think it's going to go down even more. I don't think we need to build the wall yet, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of immigration in a down economy. That's something to worry about for the next boom. We need to shoulder up our financial markets and our banking systems and stuff that are way out of kilter and have been totally killed by special interests. Special interest is the worst single thing in our economy. We can't change healthcare. We can't change education. We can't fight inflation. We can't deleverage debt because there's too many financial interests that have bought their way into politics that won't let the politicians on either side do it. So we almost, one of the reasons I welcome this kind of downturn and this collapse, it's going to bring everybody into reality. We got to get back down to what are we really doing? How do we really grow? We don't grow by companies buying back their stocks. We don't grow by printing free money. We don't grow by having zero interest rates, which just causes people to misinvest and stuff. We grow by saving and investing in productive capacity, creating new jobs, attracting good immigrants that are necessary, and having more babies. That's how we grow down the road. And technological innovation, which we kill through all types of excessive regulation. So there's so many things we could do right. We've been doing the wrong things because special interests have been driving the economy the way they want it through the politicians. And that, if I had to say number one thing I would do if I were Donald Trump and won the presidency, and this is one thing I agree with him on clearly, you've got to kill this thing where special interests can fund politicians and get them elected. That should not be allowed.
Absolutely. You mentioned technological innovation. Well, let me ask you, in your analysis, how do you see the predictions of massive automation and robotics and the displacement of workers? How do you see that playing out? A lot of people say, well, we've had a lot of these types of disruptive technologies in the past. We've seen it happen with agriculture. We've seen it happen with manufacturing. But then on the other hand, we've had people who have said, this is something that is so broad-based, it's going to hit every industry at the same time in a massive way. Are we going to look at 50% unemployment? I know some people will be fixing some robots. Some people will be manufacturing robots for a while, then robots can manufacture themselves. But how do you see this shaking out in your analysis?
Okay, David, how do you get more extreme than 80% of agriculture and mining and trapping workers going down to 2% today over the last century and a half? We always displace old jobs and create better ones. We went from agriculture to industry, production and manufacturing, from manufacturing to high-level service. I don't mean just clerical stuff and McDonald's and stuff. I mean healthcare, financial services, high technology, these sort of stuff. Every change in technology throughout history, and this is so consistent, if you look at history, you can't miss it, destroys old industries and jobs and creates new ones. The automobiles and tractors and trucks and buses and then eventually airplanes help destroy the railroad industry. They're a tiny thing now, but we're much better off. There will be new jobs created. My fear is they'll be created somewhere else because our demographics are weakening. We're aging. If we don't do something to change that, if we don't encourage innovation and higher birth rates and things, which some countries in Europe have, and which Australia has, and Israel is like the best demographic wealthy nation in the world forward, and they're a leader in technology. That's the key to going forward. You got to go with the technology. You can't fight it and say, oh, robotics are going to replace a lot of factory workers. Well,
Oh, certainly, yeah. You can't legislate that out of existence. But I guess what I've seen a lot of people say is, yeah, we've seen this happen with industry after industry, but we have the potential with this particular disruptive technology to have it happen to so many different industries simultaneously, to the service industry, to the transportation industry, to white collar, blue collar jobs. I mean, everybody, we're not going to need truck drivers nearly as much as we do now, perhaps, is what a lot of people are saying in terms of package delivery, long-term haul, that type of thing. So there's going to be so many different industries affected simultaneously that even if we eventually adjust to this, it might send this shock through the system of 50% unemployment or 60% unemployment for a few years before we can adjust to that shock. Do you see that coming? Are you concerned about that?
No, I don't. Temporarily, yes. David, I mean, I've studied history more than anybody I know. And we got computers that I call left brain machines. They can do everything from bookkeeping and robotics can do typical routine tasks in factories and stuff. They can even do a lot of what doctors and nurses do and financial advisors and everything. But what this revolution is about is forcing everyday people with common sense, creative, relational skills, which computers have none of that, at least not yet, not for a long time, to become entrepreneurs, whether you're an entrepreneur running a small part of a corporation, a team of 3 or 4 people that has a set of customers, and you're making decisions. Now, people are good at making decisions that balance off different trade-offs, relating to people, creating, finding new opportunities. Everyday people. I once heard a guy at a conference say 95% of people are a genius at something, and everybody else is my brother-in-law,
That's right. Everybody has a different kind of an intelligence. That's right.
Yeah. It's about leveraging what computers can't do, and that's about what we do that computers can't do is we create new stuff, new ideas. We relate to people. We understand their needs at a level a computer never could. I have a whole part of a chapter in chapter 8 in the demographic cliff, and I've had this in every book for the last 20 years, and nobody listens to it. The network corporation. You run companies from the bottoms up, organized around the customers, not the back lines and the bureaucrats and the managers. You automate all the bureaucracy, you make decisions in real time, and you let the customer drive your company, your front lines or your browsers, your backline experts and production facilities or your servers. The management isn't there to tell people what to do. They're there to orchestrate a network that runs with no management, just like the stock exchanges. You ring the bell at 9:30 in the morning like today, stocks are down 1,100 points, and then at the end of the day, they're back up another 1,000. It all happens with no orchestration. The computer technologies allow us to have a whole different model of interacting globally, locally, bottoms up, not top down. And when you make an everyday person an entrepreneur instead of a robot, which they are today, that's why they're being replaced by robots, you have a whole revolution. That's going to take a while, but I'll tell you, you never lose by advancing technologies. I've studied history back as far as there were ever humans. You never lose. Some people lose, and for time periods you lose. You never lose with advancing technology.
I understand. Yes, I agree. But, and just to clarify, do you see this as something that is going to happen, though, in the time frame of the 2019, 2020, that there's going to be some kind of an economic shock while we go through a period of adjustment? Or do you think it's going to be a relatively easy transition to this?
No, it's not an easy transition. It does take a shock. It's like, your heart stops and they got to go boom, they got to re-shock you going. It does take a shock. Management doesn't like this. The people in charge don't like this. Wall Street doesn't like this. We need to shift to this new network, bottoms-up economy, and the people in power still want it to be a top-down economy. It's going to take this kind of breakdown to have a breakthrough. So it'll take many decades for us to see the benefits of this. The whole assembly line revolution in automobiles, the whole Alfred Sloan corporate model of decentralizing decision-making into product lines instead of like the railroads, everything was top down. That took decades to fully manifest into an affluent economy, middle-class economy in the 50s and 60s, but the shock that made it happen was the Depression of the 1930s. It forced companies that weren't doing the right things to fail, and the ones that were doing the right things to accelerate and get more market share. So this is the winter season we talk about is part about shifting to the whole new spring season of the next longer term boom with, growing demographics again, with whole new sets of technologies. But the most important impact I found, David, through studying history is not just the cell phones let us communicate better or the internet and stuff. It's that they change the business model of everything, small businesses, large businesses, government. It changes the business model and makes everybody more productive.
You mentioned the winter season that we're coming into and then followed by a spring season. Are you familiar with the works of Strauss and Howe, where they talk about a cyclical thing? And how do you feel about that? I mean, they predicted the fourth turning around the same type of time frame that you're talking about, a winter season. They predicted a fourth turning where we might have something along the lines of the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War II. These types of things happening every 70 to 80 years. Do you believe that's a trend that you see?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did the whole thing demographically and the effects on the market and economy. They did it after, in 1989, about the same time I was putting out my first book. They did it all about the political and social impacts. When their book came out, I was like, praise God that these people came out and basically filled in the side that I'm not as much an expert in. I love